I would really like to understand reality. For me personally, it's because the point of this podcast, I'm searching for the objective function of life. Like, what is all things considered the most rational thing to do, or more simple way how to live life. And yeah, I'm making theories. Other people are making theories. But the problem is there's a big, big elephant in the room. So there's one thing that in all those theories that we make to try to understand reality, try to understand how to live, try to understand whatever you want to understand, there's one big thing that many people don't even consider to think about, but that could change all the theories. And this big elephant, this is the mind. What do we have up here? What do we have in our head? The mind is something that is so different from all the stuff we encounter in our everyday life, but at the same time, it's so fundamental. We all have it, and if we don't find a good theory that can account for the mind, we can just not have a theory, because yeah, it's, as I said, super, super fundamental. So in this podcast today, I try to tackle the question, what is the mind? I had, for my studies of psychology, I had a course, it's called Philosophy of Mind. And in the course of that course, I learned a lot about the different theories that try to explain the mind, try to explain where the mind comes from, try to explain how the mind works. And it was incredibly interesting. I really went super deep into this course, tried to understand every little bit, every little detail, and tried to make a really good podcast out of it, where I explain the different theories about the mind, the different theories that try to say, okay, that's what the mind is, that is what reality is, and try to put them all in the most possible concise and clear version. So if you are interested in trying to know what the mind is, in this podcast, I try to make it as clear as possible. So before we begin, we have to think a bit about the mind. So what is this thing even we want to explain? What is this? And there are mainly two parts in the mind that we have to explain. Like, one is the biggest one. I will just explain. So the first part is that we have experience. So it feels like something to be. It feels like something to be you. It feels like, I don't know if it feels like something to be you, but I definitely know that it feels like something to be me. I am a person, and like when I see a color, it is like something to see this color. There is like a subjective quality to seeing a color that I can't explain to you. I can't explain to you how red looks like. It's red. It's just red. I can't explain to you how coffee smells like. It's just the smell of coffee. But still, there is this experience, the experience of the smell of coffee, that I just can't deny. It's definitely there. And this is a really big problem to explain, because if you have this experience of coffee, like, where should it come from? Is it just that the electrical signals in my head lead to the experience of coffee? But there are a lot of theories on this, and I will go through all of them. But this was the first part of the mind, the first part that we try to explain. We try to explain experience. The second part is a little bit easier, it's just the cognition, the rational thinking. Not only the rational thinking, but just the ability of us to think, to reason, to plan, to have opinions, to have attitudes, to believe in things. This is also something you need to explain, but mainly, I think the biggest problem that I found now in the research I did is the problem of explaining experience, the what it is likeness, the why is red red, why does coffee smell like coffee. So to explain this, there are two main groups of theories to explain the mind. There are two main groups of theories. One of them is the dualism, and the other one is monism. So dualism and monism is not like, there are not real specific theories, but more like a umbrella term for multiple theories. Also, you could treat them as their own theories, but there are a lot of specifications of them to more exactly explain for how the mind works. And the ideas between dualism and monism, I can start with dualism. Dualism is the idea that there are two things in existence, that two things exist. And one of the things is the physical and one of the things is the mental. So that's the idea of dualism. And monism is the idea that there's only one thing, and this thing can explain for everything. So either like only the mental or only the physical, and this one thing can explain all there is. So those are the two groups. We are gonna start with dualism. Dualism, there are mainly two parts of dualism, but today we're going to focus on substance dualism. Substance dualism is exactly what I just explained. So substance dualism, a substance is something that can exist on its own. So it's not like a property. A property is something that can only exist in relation to something. For example, a color, something being red. There is no red that can just exist on its own. But red can exist as a property of something. But a substance is something, yeah, as I said, that can exist on its own. And substance dualism, two things. So substance dualism means that there are two substances, so two things that can exist on their own. So substance dualism would mean that there are two substances, the mental and the physical substance. To make an example for this, we could say that, for example, God would be pure mind and a rock would be pure matter. So God would be purely in the mental substance and the rock would be, not the rock, a rock would be purely matter. And human would be both. A human would have, according to substance dualism, would have a mental part and a physical part. So you could call it the soul maybe, and the body. This is also the theory that most religions use. But we're gonna go deeper into this. So this is the idea of substance dualism. There are two substances that just can exist on their own. So your mind could probably exist, or mind can exist without physical. Mental things can exist without physical things, and physical things can exist without mental things. But for some reason, as humans, they are connected. So we are a physical thing with a mind. So we are a mix of a physical and a mental thing. This is substance dualism. Let's go into the arguments for if substance dualism is such a good idea or if there are some big problems with it. So substance dualism, the first argument, we're going to start with the arguments. Whenever I make arguments for theories, I'm going to start with the arguments for the theories and then with the arguments against the theory. Because now we're going to go through a lot of different theories that try to explain the mind. And for each of them, I try to, in a very clear way, put all the pros and cons. By the way, if you're just listening to this, you can also watch it on YouTube or on Spotify, I think. I have like a little PowerPoint, but it's not necessary to watch the PowerPoint because I will just explain everything. And the PowerPoint is just if you want to have like something visual to see what I explain, to have like all the arguments that I explain written down. But back to substance dualism. So the first argument for substance dualism is that it's super intuitive. So just intuitively, we humans think that there must be two things. Like there's an example that like even children have this intuition. So it's not really like coming, okay, maybe it's coming from our society for sure. That's possible that there are societies in which this intuition is stronger and weaker, but just for children alone, they made experiments where they asked them if you would clone a hamster. So you would take a hamster and atom for atom build exactly the same hamster at another place. Would this hamster be the same, or would this hamster be functionally the same? And the intuition of most of the children was that no, it's not the same. It's the hamster is, there's something missing. So there's something like, you could call it the soul probably, what their intuition was like pointing to, that this hamster can't have like feelings or thoughts. And yeah, this is a really, really strong intuition, which in total, I would say it's quite a good argument for dualism, because like if you don't have anything else, like you should probably just... Intuition is useful. Like I'm not such a big proponent of intuition for rational reasoning, but it's a really good starting point. So I gave this, I always try to give like some points to the arguments I make, or the arguments for and against the theory. And I gave this a 3 out of 10, because I would say it's quite like surprisingly strong, because the intuition is super strong, but it's still just an intuition. So there's nothing really, like it's not really a strong argument. And by the way, if you, we can't just, whenever I give like points to arguments, it's just like to guess kind of the strength of the argument. It's not that you can just in the end calculate like, okay, this side has like in total like 8 points and this side has 10. So it's not true or true. It's just to like get a feel of how strong an argument is. So substance dualism is quite intuitive, yeah, which speaks for it. Another argument for substance dualism is the argument of clairvoyance. Clairvoyance is the ability of people to like any supernatural mental ability of people. So for example, if a person could, like a medium or something, could know what is going on in another room, this would be an argument for substance dualism, because like her mind can travel, like any supernatural ability of people that we couldn't explain would be a super strong argument for substance dualism. The problem with that is that many people claim that this happened, that this is possible, but it has never been scientifically proven to be true. It has never been scientifically proven to be possible. So that's why I just gave this a 1 out of 10, because like it's not real evidence. It's just like that people talk about that, and many people believe that this is possible, but it's not reproducible. So it's like, if this is really possible, then if you believe in that, or you know a person that can do that, like just go into a laboratory and like show them, like but because nobody could ever do that, or nobody has ever done this, I would say it's quite a weak argument. Yeah, you could also say like probably like anything supernatural, any supernatural like ability could go into this bucket. Yeah, clairvoyance. The next, it's quite similar. It's the communication with ghosts. That's also like that there are like people that believe that ghosts exist and that you can communicate with them, but it's exactly the same as with clairvoyance, that this has not scientifically been proven, or it's not reproducible. The stuff that people claim to have experienced, claim to have seen. So I also gave it a 1 out of 10 as quite a weak argument. So to go to the next argument, the next one is the argument of near-death experiences. And that actually there are like quite a few books written on this, and actually also studies done on this. I had a time where I looked quite deep in there, because it is quite interesting that so many people, extremely many people, when they die, they report to have an experience that is not really just like not easily explainable by just the fact of them dying. So they experience like, okay, they you could say the classic, they see a light and they see a tunnel, or they meet entities, they meet like, I don't know, their god, or they meet other family members, dead family members. They talk to people, and yeah, near-death experience means they didn't really die, but they came back, and then they can report on that. And yeah, there are a lot of people that report this, but also it's not strong. Like, okay, this actually is reproducible, but there are a few reasons that make scientists believe that this is probably nothing that really is an argument for for the existence of a mental realm, the existence of like some god or something, because of multiple reasons. Like one is that people most often experience stuff that they believe in anyway. So like if you would say in the Western world, many people are like, oh, I saw like Jesus, I talked to Jesus. And probably in more in the, like for a Hindu, he would probably see like, I don't know if, I don't know too much about Hinduism, but they would probably see like a god, or for a Muslim, they would probably see like, I don't know if talk to Muhammad. I also don't know that much about this origin. I'm going to go deeper into this, but people see stuff fitting to their religion. So there's no like unique that like everybody's seeing like Jesus and this is the proof that Christianity is true. Like no, it's just that people see what they believe in or what they are like what they saw in society a lot. Like it's not necessary to believe in Christianity to see Jesus in a near-death experience, but this seeing Jesus happens most of the time in Western world, which makes this argument of near-death experience also quite weak. I gave it a 1 here in the presentation, but like think about it, you could probably give it like a 2 or 3 because there are actually like a lot of those cases, and it's definitely something that is quite interesting to look into, and I probably going to look into this a bit more now that I'm talking about it that much. And yeah, it's definitely something to consider, but still also because the stuff is not really reproducible, it's kind of not too strong of an argument. So now let's go to the contrasides. So to sum up, the arguments for substance dualism, so for the claim that there are two different substances that can exist on their own. So there are two things in reality that exist, so the mental and the physical. The arguments for this are: one, that it's intuitive; second, clairvoyance, so supernatural abilities of people; third, the communication with ghosts; and fourth, near-death experiences. Let's go to arguments against substance dualism. One argument against substance dualism is the so-called interaction problem. And the interaction problem, we're going to actually go into this like a little more in depth. So the interaction problem is the problem of, how does the mental and the physical substances, how do they interact? And yeah, this is a pretty obvious problem if you think about it, because like if you say you have a physical substance that just follows like our rules of the rules of the laws of physics, and you have this mental substance that is like something separate from this and that is not physical at all but only mental. How could a mental substance influence the physical substance? Because this would break like the physical laws. If there is a mental substance influencing the physical substance, there must be some kind of connection between them, and then the mental substance wouldn't be purely mental anymore. So there must be, if you want to believe in substance dualism, you have to find an explanation for why you believe that this mental substance can interact with the physical substance. And actually, people really took a lot of philosophers thought a lot about this, and there are a few explanations that can explain, or that try to explain, why this interaction is possible, but also all like with their flaws, but we're going to go through them. It's like in total there are like 3 main solutions to the interaction problem, like 3 theories that try to explain why the physical and the mental substance can interact, like why they can they try to solve the interaction problem. It's not that they explain how they can interact, because it's actually a really, really big problem how they can interact. I just remembered in the past, like Descartes tried to explain this interaction by saying, okay, it's in the pineal gland in the brain, but if you say something like this doesn't solve the problem. If you just push it like further back, like no, it can't just interact with the brain, but it can interact with the pineal gland. Then it's like, why can't it interact with the pineal gland? Like, is there like a special portal in there or something that connects you to your soul, to your spirit? So that's not a good explanation, but the three explanations I have here are all quite okay. Let's call them like this. We can go through them, of course, all with their problems, but as you will see, like nearly, like I would say, no, definitely every single theory that tries to explain the mind has problems. Like there's no theory where you're like, nice, this is the one. This is perfect, easy, no problem, because then like we wouldn't talk about it. I would just say like, okay, this is the theory that has no problems. All the others are like shit. But you have to really think about the different theories and about their pros and cons, and try to find one where you say, okay, this is one that makes quite like more sense than the other ones. So the three solutions to the interaction problem, again, the interaction problem is the problem of how should a mental substance be able to interact with a physical substance, or the other way around? Why should they be somehow connected and causally influence each other? The first explanation for this is so-called occasionalism. Occasionalism is the belief that there is a God and that God causes everything. So God is the cause of all events. So when you want to lift your arm, or when you want to say something, let's say I want to, my bottle just fell. I want to drink a bit of water. So I go and grab my bottle. There's no me doing that. It's my mind wants to do that. And essentially, because of this wish is just an occasion for God to take my hand, move it, grab the bottle, and let me drink a bit of water with electrolytes. Nice. But so that's why it's called occasionalism. So everything is just like mental events are just an occasion for God to cause physical events. Like God is almighty in this view. So God is the one moving my body around. God is the one moving my tongue. Just because it's God and he's nice and he wants to do that. But he could also not do it. But he decides to do it, and that's how this interaction works. The problem with that is, go to the arguments. The problem is, obviously, like God, okay, because if you want to believe in that, you now have to believe in God, and that is a really big problem for philosophers, and there are a lot of big problems with the belief in God. So you can say, if this is no problem for you, maybe you could believe in occasionalism, probably. Like if you say God is no problem, but there are a lot of big arguments against God. I've not made a podcast specifically about that yet, but I will, definitely. And I had a discussion with Ansar Bajwa about God. He really believes in God. And like we discussed, I brought a few arguments from evolution. If you're interested in that, you can watch it. It's like episode 18, 19, 20, like somewhere in this area. Ansar Bajwa, it's called like God versus evolution or something. But let's keep going. So this was occasionalism. Occasionalism, by the way, occasionalism, the belief that God is the cause of all events. And the problem with it is that you have to accept the existence of God if you want to believe in occasionalism, which is a really strong argument against it, which I gave an 8 out of 10. So, occasionalism. The other theory, like the other solution to the interaction, or one of the other three solutions for the interaction problem, is parallelism. And parallelism is the belief that the mind and the body, they don't influence each other, but they are so perfectly in sync that they don't have to. So whenever my mind wants my hand to grab the bottle of water and drink something, then my body does that, but not because my mind wants to, but because my body is just so in sync with my mind. So my body would just do it anyway without the mind, but they are just so perfectly in sync that stuff happens at the same time, and that for both of them, like it's they're just like two clocks that you're dialed to be like perfectly in sync. They don't influence each other, but they're always doing the same. So they're always showing the same time. So when my mind wants my hand to move, my body moves, not because my mind wants to move, but because my body would move anyway. And that like for all eternity. The problem is, how do you explain this? Like, why are we so perfectly in sync? Like, who made us this perfectly in sync? And of course, we all know who did this. And this is exactly the problem of parallelism. It's the same problem as with occasionalism. And it's God. And God, again, like not such a good explanation. God, argument 8 out of 10. Exactly like last time. If you need to evoke God to explain something, there's a problem here. And yeah, you have to have strong arguments for believing in God. Yeah, but of course, I also understand to believe in God. I will make a good podcast about the arguments that I believe, because I think there are definitely arguments for God, and also this is a strong argument for God, because like with one of the two theories, you could explain how the mental and the physical interact, and yeah, God would help you with this. This was parallelism. The last solution to the interaction problem is so-called epiphenomenalism. And epiphenomenalism, I really like this theory. I would like that it's a physicalist theory, but I think you can also, sorry for saying physicalist, I didn't even explain what this means now, but epiphenomenalism is dualist theory, but you could also use it as a monist theory. I explained like monism, so there's only one substance, but it's like the way I will explain it today is as a dualist theory, but it's a really good one. I really like this view. So if you're watching the video, you can see that as a picture for epiphenomenalism, I have like a steam engine train, and the steam of the steam engine train is the ghost. And why did I choose this picture? This picture is because the idea of epiphenomenalism is that mental states, they are real, they exist, but they have no causal power. They're just a so-called epiphenomenon. What is an epiphenomenon? An epiphenomenon is something, something without causal power, like, for example, the smoke of a steam engine. So when the smoke comes out of the train, the smoke has no causal power anymore. So the smoke does nothing anymore with the train. Like the smoke has nothing to do anymore with how the train works. The smoke is just something coming out, and like it's just like going away in the air, but it has nothing, like you can't explain how the train moves, or like the smoke has nothing to do with how the train moves. All the stuff that makes the train move is before the smoke. The smoke is just what comes out of it in the end. And this is also the idea of epiphenomenalism, that like our body and stuff, it all functions on itself, but there is this smoke coming out from the way it works, which is the mind. And so the mind doesn't cause anything. It's just something that happens from the way our body works, the way our steam engine works. There's just like the steam coming out with no causal powers, but it exists. So yeah, that's the idea of epiphenomenalism. Epiphenomenalism also has one problem, and the problem is the knowledge of qualia. So I didn't explain the word qualia yet. Qualia is what I said in the beginning, experience. Like when I said the experience of seeing the color red, I can't explain to you how red looks like. I can't explain to you how coffee smells like. The experience of red, this would be quale. Like this is the singular of qualia. Qualia is the plural. So qualia are the things that, like the single, like the experiences, like the smell of coffee, the redness of red, the greenness of green, the, I don't know, taste of electrolytes. it's all, those are qualia. So the experiences. And the knowledge of qualia, why is this a problem for epiphenomenalism? As I explained, epiphenomenalism means that all this mental, like our mind is just something that is a byproduct by the workings of our body, of this steam engine that we are. We are not a steam engine, of course, but like as a metaphor. Then why do we know about qualia? Why do we know about experience? Why do we talk about it? Why do we philosophize about it? Like, it would be understandable if we are just like machines that for some reason have experience, but for some reason we know about our experience, or we seem to know about our experience, because like I'm making a podcast about exactly this. I am thinking about exactly this. Like the last week I was working so incredibly much on trying to understand this. Like, this is hard to explain if you say that it has no causal powers, because if it would truly have no causal powers, like how could we know about it? Like how could the steam engine know about the steam? If the steam really has no effect on the steam engine. Like exactly, because like our mind in epiphenomenalism is like the steam, and the steam has no effect on how the steam engine works. So like we should not know anything about the steam. And yeah, this is the problem of the knowledge of qualia, the problem of epiphenomenalism. And it's also quite a strong word. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Yeah, this is epiphenomenalism. Still a really good theory, I think. Only if there wasn't this problem. But we're gonna have a lot of theories that are quite good only if there wasn't this one problem or those many problems. So now to recap the 3 solutions to the interaction problem. How can the mind and the body interact? The 3 solutions are occasionalism, parallelism, and epiphenomenalism. Yeah, to the interaction problem. And this is all for the pros and cons of substance dualism. As I said, like the pros, as you remember, it's intuitive, clairvoyance, communication with ghosts, and near-death experiences. The pros for substance dualism. And the con, the one I explained right now, is the interaction problem, which doesn't have a really good solution. And that's why I gave it an 8 out of 10 in the strength, because all the solutions are kind of meh, and they don't really like explain it. So yeah, one of the 2 problems of substance dualism is the interaction problem. The other problem is, or not the problem, but a contra-argument against substance dualism is Occam's razor. And Occam's razor is an idea by like a monk, like something Occam, I don't know exactly, but essentially what he said was that you try to believe in the most simple thing. You try to add as little entities to your personal ontology as you possibly can. Personal ontology is essentially like the list of things you believe in. So you can imagine you have like a list of things you believe in, and you don't want to add more things to the list than necessary. Like whenever you can, you try to just have as little things on this list as possible to explain the stuff you experience. Because when you just if it's not necessary to add something, you shouldn't add it. And yeah, this is a problem with substance dualism, that there is like an extra thing. Oh, I can explain maybe Occam's razor a little bit more in detail. So like, for example, if I would say, okay, I have the flu. Why do you have the flu? Oh, it's because there are like little particles in the air and they make you sick. And you can get them because like they fly through the air, and when a witch makes a spell on you, then they make you sick. The problem with that is, like, I could also explain all this without the witch. Like, I could also just say, like, okay, there are particles in the air, and when you, like, they fly through the air, and when you inhale them, you get sick. And there doesn't have to be a witch that also, like, puts a spell on you. So, after the principle of Occam's razor, like, maybe this was a bit of a strawman, but after the principle of Occam's razor, this would mean that I can also just believe in the whole thing without the witch. And the idea of Occam's razor to just believe in in the most simple explanation possible. And substance dualism needs 2 substances, which is like twice. It's not twice as complicated, but like 2 substances are a problem if you just also can just believe in one. namely monism, where we will go next. But yeah, Occam's razor, it's a 6 out of 10. Maybe this is a little bit too much. I gave it. You could give it like a 4. But definitely important to mention. So this was the idea of substance dualism in the area of dualism. There's also property dualism. Property dualism, I'm not going to go deep into it, but essentially the idea is that there is one substance, but this substance has two properties, two types of properties, two groups of properties. A property, as I explained, is like, for example, the redness of an apple, or the yes, it's something that can exist only in relation to something. So something that is only like a property of a substance. So this, in property dualism, there's one substance, but it can have two types of properties, and those are mental and physical properties. So it can, so yeah, that's property dualism, but I'm not going to go exactly into this, because now we're going to go over from dualism to monism. And yeah, monism, as you now probably understand, is like, it doesn't have the problem of the interaction problem, because the interaction problem exists because there are two substances and you have to explain how they interact. But if there is no two substances, if there's only one, you don't have to explain how it interacts. And there are two types of monism, and it's pretty simple to memorize them, because it's like you have substance dualism, which says there are two types of two substances, and you have monism, two types of monism, and each type of monism says there's only one substance. And like the two types are idealism and materialism, or you could also call it physicalism. Idealism means is essentially the claim that there's only the mental property, the mental substance, and materialism or physicalism says there's only the physical substance. We're going to start with idealism. So idealism is the idea that the reality is fundamentally just mental. And yeah, you can also, like, it was like one of the first people talking about it was like George Berkeley, and it's called also like Berkeley's monism or Berkeley's idealism. Like, this is one version of idealism, the one where we mainly go into. And yeah, to explain it a little bit more in detail, like a quote of George Berkeley is esse est percipi, to be is to be perceived. And this is essentially the idea of Berkeley's monism or Berkeley's idealism, is that physical things only exist because they are perceived by mental things. So there is not really camera in front of me right now. It's just that I am a mental being that perceives this camera, and through me perceiving it, it exists. But it couldn't exist if it wouldn't be perceived by a mental being. So there is no really physical substance. There's just this, like, it just exists because it's perceived by a mental being. Yeah, this is essentially the argument that George Berkeley makes. And also it has like a few pros and cons. Sorry, I forgot something. I just went further. So that the problem, or not the problem, like one thing that this explanation needs is like, what happens to this camera if I don't perceive it? Like, what happens if I turn around and don't look at the camera? Does the camera still keep existing? I can turn around. Wow, it's still there. And that is a problem, because like, if things only exist when they are perceived, why don't they stop existing when they are not perceived? And the explanation that George Berkeley makes for that is, again, God. So because God, as like the being in the sky, can just observe everything and observes everything at the same time, and he makes that stuff doesn't disappear. He lets stuff keep existing. He makes that stuff keeps existing. So let's go now into the pros and cons. The pro for idealism is that experience seems non-physical. So experience is the redness of red, the taste of coffee, this qualia is something that doesn't seem physical. Like, it's not the same as like my bottle. It's not the same as my table. It's not the same as like the shelf or my dumbbell. I don't know. Like there is something subjective in it, and also this experience is like all we know essentially. Like there's like I don't really know if there's a dumbbell on my shelf here, but I know that I experience a dumbbell on my shelf here. So experience is in some form, it's more fundamental than the physical, because like I can't really experience, like I can't really know if there is something physical here. I can just know that there is the experience of something physical here. So this experience, yeah, and the other thing is that this experience seems like it's non-physical. So it would make sense to say, okay, the physical stuff is the stuff that I will doubt, and I will not doubt my experience. So I think that's a really strong argument. So I gave it a 6 out of 10. Yeah, you could maybe even give it like a 7 or something. But experience seems non-physical. Is an argument for idealism. Idealism, again, the idea that there's only the mental. Let's go now to the cons of idealism. So the first argument why you might doubt idealism is the first argument. So the first argument for why you might doubt idealism is the argument that there are objective properties. And objective properties, what do I mean by that? Objective properties is the fact that there are just some facts in the world. So it's not all like just my mind. I can't just like manifest a change in the laws of physics. Like it doesn't matter if I believe that there's a bottle here or not. Like I can't change it. Like no matter how much I try to not believe that there is a bottle here, like objectively there is a bottle here. Like no matter if you say you believe it or not, it's just objectively here. And so like yes, things just seem objectively to exist. Like I don't say that we're 100% sure, but I can't say that we're 100% sure of anything, essentially. But still, there seems to be objective facts in the world. Like no matter what you believe in, no matter what you manifest, no matter, yeah, there are just like some objective things. So some objective truth, some like the laws of physics or something, that. It might be possible to explain by the mind, but in some sense, yeah, just the fact that they seem so objective could lead to the belief, or like leads to the belief that there must be something objective out there. It's not just my mind. There must be something out there that I am perceiving, and it's not just me, my mind building like something, because it is. Because it has objective properties, and yeah, it's just like the world would work no matter if I perceive it or not. Like this bottle would fall down no matter if I look at it or not. Like or no matter if I believe in it or not. Like the world would keep working no matter if we humans exist or not. Probably, of course, we don't know. But that's an argument against idealism, which I also gave a 6 out of 10, exactly like the first argument that experience seems non-physical. So they both quite clash. Another argument against idealism is the argument that it's not a real argument, but it's a problem for idealism, is that it's not a full explanation. So I gave it a 0 out of 10. It's not a strong argument, but it's not really an argument, as I said. But it just says that if you want to believe in idealism, you're not done. You can't just say, okay, I believe in idealism, everything is like solved for me. No. Because you still have to explain how does it work exactly. Like, how does the mind lead to the world? Like, why is there this world here? How do you use the mind to explain this objectively seeming world? Are there other minds? Like, when you as a person watching, do you believe that I have a mind, or am I just something that you perceive, that your mind builds? It's exactly the same question for me, like an explanation for this, and yeah, there's a lot more explanation needed if you really want to believe in idealism. So that was the idea of idealism. Beautiful picture, by the way, for people watching the PowerPoint. And let's go through the other monistic theory. The other monistic theory is materialism, or also called physicalism. This is the idea that there is a materialist, that there is a physical substance, and there's only physical substance. So there's nothing mental, there's just the physical. And now you think like, oh, there are probably a lot of problems with that, and yeah, there are a few, but it's actually like, it solves this problem of objectivity in the world. It has the problem with exactly the other thing, so this, that my experience seems to be just subjective, but the objectivity, it explains quite well, and it's like mainly the framework that we use in science nowadays. So materialism, the belief that there's like material stuff, like that there's a really, that there is physical stuff out there. Physicalism also, like, it's just another word, or more exact, like if you say physicalism, it means that physical stuff exists. Materialism means that only material stuff exists, which you could say is kind of the same, but you could also argue that it's something else that's a little bit different. So I will probably go with physicalism, but maybe I also use the word materialism a few times. We can just use it interchangeably here, because it's kind of roughly the same. So the first materialist theory is the theory of philosophical behaviorism. I just realized that this is getting really long, so I'm gonna do a part 2 where I go into all the materialist theories and yeah, just finish everything up. Now we went through everything not material, so yeah, we went through the through idealism, we went through like the dualist theories, and yeah, all in the try to answer what is the mind. I hope you enjoyed that. Please, if you have any feedback, just send it to me, and I will try to make the next episode as fast as possible, because also maybe some of my classmates in my psychology studies are watching this for the exam in 2 days. And I try to get it done before the exam, but I can't promise, because it's quite a lot, and I have a barbecue today, so I don't know if I can manage, but I will give my best, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope I could help. I hope you understood this, and yeah, enjoy life. Enjoy. Enjoy. Bye-bye.